All right, folks, just checking if we are live. Usually takes a while to get started. Okay, let's see. Awesome. I think we are live. Folks, can you hear me and see me all right? Can you please confirm on chat? Good evening, Keval. Can you just confirm if you can see me and hear me all right? Hey, Abhimanyu, Tariq. Oh, good to see familiar names. Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you for confirming. There's there's a bit of a delay on chat always on YouTube. Okay. So that's why it's always late. Great, great. Good to see you folks. Sorry about the delay. The delay was from my end. Some last minute technical issues. So sorry about that, and thanks for waiting. Um, for those of you who are attending my session for the first time, right? A very quick introduction. So my name is Jatin. I am the lead faculty for VRC at 2IM. Yeah, that's a quick introduction. I won't go into my background. Let's get started with the session because I know you folks have been waiting for some time. This is one of the sessions in the 2IM CAT VRC Blitzkrieg series. Okay. So you must be familiar with the Quant Blitzkrieg that we do every Sunday. So in the Quant Blitzkrieg, every Sunday evening, our lead quant faculties come and solve the questions topic-wise from the last few years papers, right? So you'll see questions. Let's say the topic can be I don't know, profit and loss, and then they solve all the questions from the last few years that appeared in CAT from the topic of profit and loss. So in VRC Blitzkrieg, what we do is we do this every Friday. We haven't really been consistent. Okay, so apologies for that. But going forward, we are going to be consistent. So every Friday from 6 to 7, not 6 to 7, 6 to 8, we have the VRC Blitzkrieg. And what we're going to do is we're going to solve VRC questions from CAT 21. All right. So we've already done 3 sessions. So we have completed CAT 21 slot 1 RCs. The 4 RCs have been completed from slot 1. From slot 2, we've done 2 RCs already. Okay, and you can go into a playlist and you can check out those sessions. Right. Today we're going to do the remaining 2 RCs of slot 2. All right. So I've just given them some random titles. Don't go by the titles. Okay. In CAT we don't have titles. This is just for me to identify the passages. So we're going to do 2 passages, Colonialism and Truth. All right. You will find the PDF link in the description of this video. All right. So I'll give you some time upfront to read the passages, but get the PDF, go to the video description and you will get the PDF. You will see the 2 passages there. All right. Okay, perfect. Now let's get started. Now, I always say this, to make the best use of this session, you should read the passages beforehand. But if you haven't done that, it's okay. I'll give you some time. I won't be able to give you a lot of time. I'll probably give you like a few minutes to read the passage, and then we'll start discussing the passage and the questions. Next time, try and read the passages beforehand before you come for the session. Okay? All right, folks, let's get started. Okay, so this is what we're going to read now. This is reading comprehension 3 of slot 2 around colonialism. Title doesn't matter. Please go to the YouTube description and open the PDF and start reading the passage. Okay, I'll give you roughly 5 minutes to finish this. Once you're done reading the passage, please type the main idea in chat. Okay, extract the main idea of this passage in your own words, 2 to 3 sentences maximum. Type that in chat. All right. Or alternatively, you can just say done so that I know you're done reading. But I would prefer if you extract the main idea and put that in chat. Once you're done, I'll explain the passage and then we'll do the questions together. All right, go for it, people. Read the passage, please. All right, so I've gotten one main idea from here. Okay, here on you're definitely on the right track. Okay, I won't comment on it because I don't want to sort of give it away, but you're definitely on the right track. So well done. Um, others, please type done when you're done reading, and preferably extract the main idea and type it. Okay. All right, I'm just going to read a few ideas that I'm seeing. So Ishika says main idea is accepting the European materialistic culture while keeping the distinctness of own culture intact. Okay. Prajita says the passage revolves around colonialism and its effects. It also talks about how Indians wanted to protect, preserve, and strengthen the spiritual essence of their culture and not give in. Right, right. Okay. So both Ishika and Aprachita, they're on the right track. Aprachita, you're on the right track. What you've said is correct. But there's one element which is not very clearly coming out in your main idea. Okay, so think about that. There are two sort of distinct components in the passage, right? You've spoken about the spiritual bit. Okay, there's one thing else that you need to speak about in the main idea as well. So think about that. Okay, Sanskriti says the passage was about the house struggle fight against the European culture, framed the idea of nationalism. All right, Sanskriti, it's quite broad right now. You'll have to be a little specific. The passage goes deeper than that. Okay, you've given me like the broad sort of skeleton of it, but you'll have to be a little specific. Okay, all right. Should we start discussing, folks, or is there someone who needs more time? Okay, tell me, people in chat, should we start discussing? Okay, great. So Keval says yes. I'll go with what Keval is saying. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Harsh. Let's discuss this passage, people. So what I do is when I'm discussing passages, right, or when I'm reading them, I always talk about effective reading strategies, right? So there are 8 effective reading strategies that like I've discussed with my students in class. I can't discuss all 8 of them right now, but the main one that you need to follow is that when you're reading a passage, an RC, you have to focus on extracting the main idea. When you're done reading the passage, you should be able to extract the main idea in 2 to 3 sentences. So I always tell my students, focus on the main idea, don't get stuck on the details. Your job is not to understand each and every word and sentence of the passage, right? Your job is to extract the main idea. So don't get stuck on words and sentences. Just extract the main idea after you're done reading the passage. All right? Okay, let's discuss this. So what does it say? I have elaborated a framework for analyzing the contradictory pulls on Indian nationalist ideology in its struggle against the dominance of colonialism and the resolution it offered to those contradictions. Okay, all right. So it's talking about Indian nationalist ideology struggle against the dominance of colonialism, right? And it talks about some contradictory pulls which we don't understand as of now. Let's carry on. Briefly, this resolution, the resolution that the ideology offered, this resolution was built around a separation of the domain of culture into 2 spheres. All right. What are the spheres? The material and the spiritual. It was in the material sphere that the claims of Western civilization were the most powerful. Science, technology, rational forms of economic organization, modern methods of statecraft, these had given the European countries the strength to subjugate the non-European people. Okay, so European countries here, colonialists, okay, they subjugated the European people through the material, using the material sphere. All right, and they talk about what that material sphere is, right? They were more powerful in the material sphere. And what is the material sphere? Science, technology, those are the examples that the author has given. To overcome this domination in the material sphere, the colonized people had to learn those superior techniques of organizing material life and incorporate them within their own cultures. Right? So they were being overpowered because the colonialists were dominant in the material sphere. So to overcome this domination, the colonized people had to learn those techniques. But, okay, it's a transition word. Whenever there is a but, right, this transition word, the author changes tracks, goes in the opposite direction. But this could not mean the imitation of the West in every aspect of life. For then, the very distinction between the West and the East would vanish. The self-identity of national culture would itself be threatened. So to overcome this domination, the colonized people, which we can say is the East in this case, we can infer that, the East had to learn those superior techniques from the West. Or rather, the East had to learn those superior techniques that the West already knew. But this could not mean the imitation of the West in every aspect of the life. So East is imitating West in one aspect, but this doesn't mean that East is imitating West in all aspects. Why? Because East wanted to maintain their own identity. Okay, so this paragraph we've read, right? Now let's try to extract the main point. That's what I do. I read the paragraph, and this is a very good technique. You read one paragraph, and it's a pretty lengthy paragraph. Extract the main point. Make a mental note of the main point. You can even write it down. If let's say you say that, okay, my comprehension is not that great, you can write down that main point. But it's going to take additional time. But that's fine. If it helps you with comprehension, go ahead and do that. If you can just take the mental note, pause for a few seconds, take a mental note, and then move on. So let's take that note. What is this paragraph talking about? Okay, it's definitely talking about national ideology, right? So there is a national ideology or the nationalist ideology that is struggling against the dominance of colonialism. Why are the colonialists dominant? Because they are dominant in the material sphere. Okay, sorry, 1 second. Right, so there are two spheres being spoken about in this passage, in this paragraph, right? The resolution was built around the separation of domain of culture into two spheres. What are those two spheres? There's material and there is spiritual. Okay, now in the material sphere, the West or the colonialists are dominant. Okay, so what the East does is, to overcome this domination, the East sort of imitates the West. In one aspect. So they imitate the West in one aspect while retaining the other aspects because they want to retain their identity. That's the main point of this first paragraph. Okay, all right, let's move on. Now, the discourse of nationalism shows that the material spiritual distinction, okay, there is a material spiritual distinction, right? Because there are two spheres, was condensed into an analogous but ideologically far more powerful dichotomy. Okay, now there are two sort of words that can be unfamiliar, right? See, usually I tell people don't get stuck on unfamiliar words. Try to understand them through context. Okay, like you will encounter situations where you will encounter some unfamiliar words. So don't get stuck. Try to understand them through context. So let's try to do that. Discourse of nationalism shows that the material spiritual distinction was condensed into an analogous. Analogous means comparable, but ideologically far more powerful dichotomy, that between the outer and the inner. Now you have to understand this. Let's say you don't understand dichotomy, no problem. What this sentence is doing is it's talking about the material spiritual distinction and it's comparing this with the distinction between outer and inner. There are two aspects here. The material spiritual distinction that we spoke about in the first paragraph, and here it's being compared with another distinction, that of the outer and inner. And the author is saying the material spiritual distinction was analogous but ideologically far more powerful. Alright? Okay. Applying the inner outer distinction to the matter of concrete day-to-day living,
separates the social space into ghar and bahir, the home and the world. The world is the external, the domain of the material. Okay, so we have inner and outer. Outer is the world, which represents the material. The home represents one's inner spiritual self. So you see the connection now? Material, spiritual, inner, outer. Material is outer, spiritual is inner. The home represents one's inner spiritual self, one's true identity. The world is a treacherous terrain of the pursuit of material interests, where practical considerations reign supreme. It is also typically the domain of the male. Now they're bringing in a gender here. Be conscious of that. The home in its essence must remain unaffected by the profane activities of the material world, and woman is its representation. Very interesting. And so one gets an identification of social roles by gender to correspond with the separation of the social space into ghar and bahir. Now let's try to simplify this. What's the main point here? You have your material and spiritual, right? This is coming from the first paragraph, the two spheres of culture. Material is being equated with outer. Spiritual is being equated with inner, the outer world and the home. Then in terms of gender, outer is being equated with male and inner is being equated with female. That's the main point. Keep it simple. Don't look at it broadly and extract the main point. Don't try to understand each and every line here. Now, let's say for instance, we don't understand dichotomy. Even without getting into the meaning of dichotomy, we were able to figure this out. So that's the whole idea. Extract the main point, don't get stuck on details. Okay, so the gender thing has come here now. So male is being equated with material, female is being equated with spiritual. All right, let's continue. The colonial situation and the ideological response of nationalism to the critique of Indian tradition introduced an entirely new substance to these dichotomies and affected their transformation. Okay, the material spiritual dichotomy, to which the terms world and home corresponded, had acquired a very special significance in the nationalist mind. So it's extending that concept now. Okay, the world was where the European power had challenged the non-European peoples, and by virtue of its superior material culture had subjugated them. Right? So that's correct, right? Because where the colonialists were powerful in this area, okay, and outer is nothing but your world. So they were powerful in this area, and that's how they subjugated the East. Okay, all right. But the nationalists asserted it had failed to colonize the inner essential identity of the East, which lay in its distinctive and superior spiritual culture. So that means they were able to subjugate the East in the outer world, but not in the spiritual world. At least that's what the nationalists asserted. That they were able to overpower us in the outer world, but our spiritual identity remained intact or was superior. Okay. In the entire phase of the national struggle, the crucial need was to protect, preserve, and strengthen the inner core of the national culture, its spiritual essence. So what's the main point here? The main point here is that the West, okay, overpowered or subjugated the East. Okay. In what? When it comes to the material world. But the nationalists assert that when it came to the spiritual world or spiritual essence, the East maintained its identity and the West was not able to overpower that. Okay, and that's what the nationalists sort of strived for. They wanted to protect, preserve, and strengthen the inner core of the national culture, which is its spiritual essence. Okay, all right, let's continue. Last paragraph. Once we match this new meaning of the home world dichotomy with the identification of social roles by gender, we get the ideological framework within which nationalism answered the woman's question. It's a complex sentence. Let's move on. It would be a grave error to see in this, as liberals are apt to, in their despair at the many marks of social conservatism in nationalist practice, a total rejection of the West. Now simplify this sentence. Okay, this part is additional. Remember, look at the sentence construction. Don't get confused. That's an additional clause. So what does it say? It would be a grave error to see in this a total rejection of the West. That is the main part. It would be a grave error to see in this a total rejection of the West. And this rejection is often seen by liberals. That's what the author is saying. So simplify the construction. Okay. So it says it would be a grave error to see in this a total rejection of the West. Quite the contrary, the nationalist paradigm in fact supplied an ideological principle of selection. So what does this paragraph say? That the East did not reject the West completely. And think about it, they did not, right? Because in the material world, the East imitated the West. But in the spiritual identity, they retained their identity. So this was not a complete rejection of the West. It says it was an ideological principle of selection. Okay, so that's where it ends. Now, what's the main idea of this entire passage? Think about it. Okay, we've made some notes, right? What is the central theme that's running in this passage? You definitely have to incorporate material. Sorry about this. And spiritual. Okay, that's why one of you, I think Sanskriti, I told you that one element was missing. I think the material part didn't really come out in your main idea. Okay, so there's material and spiritual, right? Material is being equated to male, spiritual is being equated to female. Okay, now when it comes to the East scores here in the spiritual essence, the spiritual aspect, they retain their identity. But the West scores in the material world, and that's how in this aspect they were able to subjugate the East. Okay, and if you want to bring in the home world inner outer dichotomy, you can do that as well. We have taken a note. Material is your outer or world, spiritual is your inner or home. This is actually the main idea of this passage. Okay, I know I gave you a long explanation. That's typically how I do it. But tell me in chat, do you guys agree? Does it sort of align with the main idea that you had in mind? Okay, I'm going to wait for a while because it's YouTube chat. Okay, Vinita and Aman, thank you. Can I get a few more yeses or nos? I'm absolutely fine with nos, but I need to hear from you. If you're my student, you would know I thrive on interaction. If I don't get interaction, I get a little, I'm not sure whether people are following me or not. And on YouTube, the problem is this lag. Okay, I've gotten quite a few yeses. Good stuff. Thank you, people. So yeah, so we've extracted the main idea. Okay, and then just focus on. You saw how I took sort of a broad view, right? That's what you should do with RCs. The idea is not to understand each and every word and sentence, and don't try to do that. Okay, because you'll get completely confused. In fact, in any reading, even when you're leisure reading anything, except when you're studying and college books or school books, that's a different story. But when you're reading in general, we never attempt to understand each and every word and line. We try to extract the main idea. Okay, details can sometimes confuse you. Don't skip anything. Read each and every word, but extract the main idea. Focus on the main idea. If there's a question about the detail, you can always come back to a specific portion, reread that and answer the question. All right? Okay, perfect. So now let's go to the interesting bit. Okay, and let's try to solve the questions. This passage is definitely complex, by the way. Okay, in slot 2, in fact, in all the slots in CAT 21, this was one of the difficult passages. The language is not very straightforward. It's abstract, and also it's abstract. It's not something which is concrete, right? It speaks about spirituality and materialism and nationalism and all of that. So it's a little abstract. The language is complex. Now we can hope that the questions are manageable, but in this case you will see the questions were also tricky. Okay, all right. Anyway, let's go to question number 1. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Read the question carefully. Please read each and every word. Don't rush into it. look at all the options and then pick the best option. We will run a poll on YouTube. Okay, you can choose there. Don't ping on chat, just choose on the poll. Okay, and then I'll discuss. Okay, the poll is up. People feel free to vote. Take your time. You'll have like, I'll give you enough time. Sorry, folks, I was on mute. Apologies. I was on mute. My bad. Okay, should be okay now. So all those 10 seconds, 40 seconds that I gave you was useless. 1 second. What's happening? Should be okay now. Can you hear me now? Okay, I think it's fine now. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, which one of the following, if true, would weaken the author's claims in the passage? Okay, now you've gone for first choice was option 4. Okay, then you've gone for option 2, that's your second choice, 29% of you voted. Then 1 is your third choice, 25% of you voted, and then finally there are very few takers for 3. Okay, all right, let's see what the answer is now. Now it's a tricky question. It's a critical reasoning question right up front. So complex passage, tricky question. Yeah, it's one of those situations. Which one of the following, if true, would weaken the author's claims in the passage? So this is a CR question, critical reasoning question. Okay, they're asking you to weaken the author's claims in the passage. Now, before we go into the options, let's try to understand this question. See, whenever it says if true, right? If true simply means that you have to assume that each option is absolutely true. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the options given to you, you have to assume that they are true. You don't contest the options. Okay, assume that they are true. Okay, now when you assume that they are true, which one would weaken the author's claims in the passage? So the author has definitely made some claims in the passage, right, regarding East and West and material and spiritual and outer and inner and all of that. So we have to choose an option that weakens the author's claims. Now, what does weaken mean? An option that brings in a doubt. That's what weaken means. Okay, weaken doesn't mean invalidating the author's claims completely. It just means bringing in some kind of doubt. The author's making certain claims. The option that is the correct option would bring in a doubt in the author's claims. There's a difference. Bringing in a doubt versus completely invalidating it. We're looking for a doubt. So the option that brings in the most amount of doubt will be the correct answer. Okay, let's look at this. Now we'll go option by option. Now, first of all, what was the main idea before that? Because author's claims is nothing but the main idea, right? We said material, spiritual. Okay, the West subjugated the East based on material, but the East had an upper hand and retained their spiritual identity. Okay, then of course you had the male-female bit as well. Okay, let's continue. Option number 1. Indian nationalists rejected the cause of English education for women during the colonial period. Okay, so of course, you know, the nationalists were in opposition to the colonialists, right, in the per the passage. So this option is saying Indian nationalists rejected the cause of English education for women during the colonial period. Okay, so does this weaken the author's claims? What is the author saying in the passage? Is the author saying that nationalists accepted everything that the colonialists gave them? Does the passage say that the East accepted everything that the West said that they should do? Is the passage saying that the East was completely subjugated in all aspects by the West? The passage is not saying that. The passage is saying that the West subjugated the East in the material domain, but in the spiritual domain, they had an upper hand. Okay, and towards the end, it also talks about ideology of selection. So what does that mean? The East selected some aspects of the West, but rejected some aspects of the West. Right? So here the option is saying Indian nationalists rejected the cause of English education for women during that colonial period. What is the problem in this? There's no problem. Anyway, the passage says the East accepted some, rejected some. So this might be one of the rejections. Okay, so this does not weaken the author's claims. This actually aligns with the author's claims because it is like that. Accept some, reject some. Okay, so this doesn't weaken the author's claims. In fact, it's aligned to the author's claims. Okay, all right. Let's go to number 2. This was the second choice. Forces of colonial modernity played an important role in shaping anti-colonial Indian nationalism. Forces of colonial modernity played an important role in shaping anti-colonial Indian nationalism. So, Indian nationalism per the passage was definitely anti-colonial in some aspects, right? So, forces of colonial modernity played an important role in shaping anti-colonial Indian nationalism. How does it weaken it? Where does it talk about modernity? Let's see that. Is there any mention of modernity here? Yeah. So, for instance, it says it was in the material sphere that the claims of Western civilization were the most powerful. All right. Science, technology, rational forms of economic organization, modern methods of statecraft. These had given the European countries the strength to subjugate the non-European people. So the modern methods had given the European people or the colonialists or the West the upper hand. To overcome this domination, the colonized people had to learn those superior techniques of organizing material life and incorporate them within their cultures. Look at this. This is aligned. The option says forces of colonial modernity played an important role in shaping anti-colonial Indian nationalism. How did the Indian nationalism came about? Per the passage, because the West was subjugated. Excuse me. The West was subjugating the East in the modern material world, and that's how this anti-nationalism movement started, or the whole ideology started. So it gave way to that. So these forces of colonial modernity definitely played an important role in shaping anti-colonial Indian nationalism, because the East was subjugated because of that. So obviously they're going to resist that. So this is aligned with the passage. This is not your answer. Okay, let's go to 3. The Industrial Revolution played a crucial role in shaping the economic prowess of Britain in the 18th century. This is fine. This is true. This is true for the passage. The Britain or the West, the colonialists, became powerful because of their sort of industrial or the industries or the science technology. So this is aligned to the passage. This is not your answer. Okay. Let's look at 4. The colonial period saw the hybridization of Indian culture in all realms as it came in contact with British European culture. Hybridization. What does hybridization mean? You have your Indian culture. Sorry. Okay. And you have the British culture. If you're saying the Indian culture became hybrid, that means it borrowed everything from the British culture. It says all realms. Did the Indian culture accept everything from the British culture? No. They accepted only the material aspect. The spiritual aspect they rejected, and they didn't reject it, they just retained their own identity. So the hybridization didn't happen in all realms. It only happened in the material world. So if this is true, remember it says if true. If this is true and the hybridization happened in all realms, it weakens the author's claims. Because the author says it didn't happen in all realms, it didn't happen in the spiritual realm. So if this is true, it brings in a doubt and it weakens the author's claims. Hence, your answer is 4. Okay? Alright, let's move on, folks. Let's go to the next question. If you have any questions about this, we'll deal with it at the end, just in the interest of time. Okay, let's we'll catch up, we'll sort of speed up a little bit. Okay, RC3 question 2. So we'll run the poll and you can answer it here. All right, the poll is up. Please vote. We'll give you 2 minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, let's take 30 more seconds, people. All right, last 10 seconds. Okay, and we have the answers. Let's look at this. Yeah, this is more split. This is more split than the last time. So you definitely, you folks found this a little more tricky than the last one. Okay, and it is tricky. It's not a straightforward question. So your top choices are 2 and 3 with equal votes. 34% of you chose 2, and 34% of you chose 3. 18% of you chose 1, and 12% of you have chose 4. So there are takers for all 4 options, and 38, 34, 34 equal split between 2 and 3. Okay, let's look at this. Now let's understand this question. That's why I always say when you come to read, when you're reading the questions, never increase your speed. Be very slow and deliberate when you're reading the questions. Read each and every word very carefully. Okay, if you miss one word, your answer can be completely wrong. So read each and every word of the question and each of the options before you decide the answer. Okay, all right. Which one of the following best describes the liberal perception of Indian nationalism? The question does not say which one of the following best describes the Indian nationalism. Okay, it says best describes the liberal perception of Indian nationalism. So first of all, we have to find out from the passage what is the liberal perception of Indian nationalism. Now if you've read it effectively, you would have a mental map which would tell you that this was mentioned somewhere in the last paragraph. Okay, and when we were understanding the main idea, right, you probably didn't understand this sentence. It is absolutely fine because it was not a part of the main idea. Our job was to extract the main idea, which we did successfully. This was a detail. You might not have understood it when you read the whole passage, but now you have a mental map. Go back, reread it, understand it, and then come and answer the question. First of all, understand what is the liberal perception. Let's go back of Indian nationalism. I'm going to remove this. Okay. All right. It says it would, okay, read the whole paragraph. Once we match this new meaning of the home world dichotomy with the identification of social roles by gender, okay, so you have the home world dichotomy and you have the female male, right? Okay. So once we match, we get the ideological framework within which nationalism answered the women's question. It would be a grave error to see in this a total rejection of the West. That's how I told you to simplify the statement, right? This was additional. So it would be a grave error to see in this a total rejection of the West. And who sees it like this? Liberals. Understand this statement. As liberals are apt to, in their despair at the many marks of social conservatism in nationalist practice. So that means what the sentence is saying is the moment liberals see any sort of indication of social conservatism in nationalist practice, okay, they would think that the East has completely rejected the West, which according to the author is an error. So author says it would be a grave error to see in this that the nationalism ideology completely rejected the West. According to the author, that's not true. But the liberals see it like this. Okay, the liberals think that the nationalist ideology completely rejected the West, whereas the author says this is an error because the nationalism paradigm in fact supplied an ideological paradigm of selection, selecting some aspects, rejecting some aspects, whereas liberals think, oh, the nationalist ideology rejects the West completely. Okay, all right, so that's how the liberals are perceiving the nationalist ideology. Let's go back. Which one of the following best describes the liberal perception of Indian nationalism? Now we know what the liberal perception is. Let's try to match it. Indian nationalism embraced the changes brought about by colonialism in Indian women's traditional gender roles. Is this what the liberals think? That Indian nationalism embraced the changes brought about by colonialism in Indian women's traditional gender roles. If Indian nationalism is embracing changes, the West, think about it, the liberals are saying that nationalism completely rejected, that's what they believe in, completely rejected the West. So if the option is saying Indian nationalism embrace the changes, if they embrace the changes, it's going against the liberal perception. Okay, Indian nationalist discourses reaffirm traditional gender roles for Indian women. Indian nationalist discourses reaffirm traditional gender roles for Indian women. Think about this option. If this is true, okay, Indian nationalist discourses reaffirm traditional gender roles for Indian women. That means the nationalists stuck to their beliefs. They rejected the West, stuck to their beliefs. Right? And the liberal believe that the nationalist ideology completely rejects the West. This kind of aligns. Let's park this. Okay. Indian nationalism sophistication resided in its distinction of the material from the spiritual spheres. That is not the liberal perception. The liberal perception is about rejection, complete rejection of the West. The liberal perception is not about the distinction. So this is not your answer. Indian nationalist discourses provided an ideological principle of selection. If the liberals believed in this, then where is the rejection? The author believes in this. The liberal believes it's rejection. The author believes that it's selection. So this is not your answer. The correct answer is definitely this. Number 2. Okay? Because if the nationalists are reaffirming their own roles, their own beliefs, that means they're rejecting the West, which is what the liberals believe in. Alright? Okay. So this is your answer. Yes, Fuzail is saying toughest RC. It is a tough RC. I will completely agree with you. Okay, it's a tough RC, it's a complex RC. The first 2 questions have also been complex. Generally with a complex RC, you would have manageable questions. But this was just one of those RCs. Right, so this is where your question selection strategy comes into picture in the exam. Right, okay, let's move on folks. You have to pick up a little bit of speed. Sanchit, good. I'm glad you got it correct. Very good. Very well done. Okay, let's move on. All right. Hopefully, let's see if this is a manageable question. We'll run the poll. Please answer the question. And if you have any questions about the questions I'm discussing, I'm happy to stay back for a bit. Okay, I'll stay back. I'll actually stay back in this session. Sometimes I say that and then I disappear. This time I'll stay back. So if you have any questions, we'll discuss that, the pending questions. Okay, go for it. We'll run the poll. It's up and you can go for it. And folks, if you're enjoying the session, please don't forget to hit like. Okay, it helps us, right? The more the algorithm works in a way, the more likes we get, the more popular the video becomes, right? So we want this to reach to many CAT aspirants. So if you're finding it useful, please hit the like button. Okay, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. I'm acting like a YouTube influencer now. Anyway, I'll shut up now. You guys solve the question. Okay, people, 30 more seconds and then we'll end the question. Okay. Please, everybody vote. There's no harm in voting. All right, 10 more seconds. The results should be up any second. Okay, and they're up. Okay, so there is more of a majority in this one. So you didn't find this indicator, that you didn't find this as tricky as the last one. 48% of you chose 3, almost half. Okay, this is your first option. 37% of you, so this is close, chose 4. All right, so this is your second choice, and the 37-48 is close. So 3 and 4 kind of confused you. Okay, 11% of you chose 2, so this is your third choice. Very few takers for the first option. Okay, all right, let's see this. On the basis of the information in the passage, obviously, all questions are based on the information in the passage. All of the following are true about the spiritual material dichotomy of Indian nationalism, except. Now, there is an except here. Now, it's very, see, except is in capital letters. Hopefully, they'll always give except in capital letters, but watch out for it. You never know. Sometimes they might just trick you, right? So be careful with these questions. See, I always tell my students, if this question is confusing you, read it without the except first. Okay, what does it say? On the basis of the info in the passage, all of the following options are true. All 4 are true. And what are the options about spiritual material dichotomy of Indian nationalism? So all 4 options are true. Now read except. So what does it mean? 3 are true, 1 is not true. And your job is to pick the one that's not true. Not true about the spiritual material dichotomy of Indian nationalism. Okay, so one of the options is not a feature of the spiritual material dichotomy of Indian nationalism. Now see, here we have the word dichotomy. Okay, by the way, you should definitely add this word in your vocabulary. Anything that, now when you're solving RC questions, you encounter a word that is unfamiliar, especially from the past CAT papers, definitely add it in your vocabulary. So after the session, look up the meaning, look up the pronunciation, look up the sentences, make it a part of your vocabulary. It's a very nice word. See, dichotomy, even if you don't understand, you would have understood by now that it's connected to distinction. Okay, it's very similar to distinction. So dichotomy actually is duality. Okay, whenever you have two opposing things. Okay, so for instance, here you're talking about Indian nationalism. Now there are two opposing aspects of the Indian nationalism, right? There is a spiritual part of it and there is a material part of it, right? So that's the dichotomy. Why is it opposing people? Think about it. Why is the spiritual aspect and material aspect of Indian nationalism opposing? Because in the material aspect, they are imitating the West, but in the spiritual aspect, they're retaining their identity. So the contradictory pulls that the first paragraph spoke about, that is what it was. Okay, so dichotomy is nothing but duality. Okay, and you can look it up and make this a part of your vocabulary. All right, so which one is not an aspect of this? Helped in safeguarding the identity of Indian nationalism. This dichotomy did help in safeguarding the identity of Indian nationalism, right? Because it retained the spiritual essence, and that was the identity. So the dichotomy, the duality did help in safeguarding the identity. So this is not your answer. Remember, we're picking the one that is not true. Okay. Constituted the premise of the ghar bahir dichotomy. Correct. What is the ghar bahir dichotomy? The inner, outer. This was analogous, right? So it did constitute the premise of the ghar bahir dichotomy. This is not the answer. Okay. Represented a continuation of age-old oppositions in Indian culture. This dichotomy, did it represent a continuation of age-old oppositions in Indian culture? No, it didn't represent a continuation. Nowhere does the passage say that it represents a continuation of age-old oppositions in Indian culture. No, so let's park this. Was not as ideologically powerful as the inner-outer dichotomy. Okay? Was not as, one second, just give me 1 second, okay? I'm getting a little confused. On the basis all of the following are true about the spiritual, okay, was not as ideologically powerful as the inner-outer dichotomy. Okay, let's see that. So we're talking about spiritual material dichotomy, right? Okay, let's go back. Let's see. Yes. So it says the material spiritual distinction was condensed into an analogous but ideologically far more powerful dichotomy. So material spiritual was far more powerful than the outer and inner, is what the author is saying. Okay. Was not as ideological. Following a true. No, this is. Okay, if all the following are true, so this helped in safeguarding, constitute the premise of represented a continuation of age-old oppositions in Indian culture. What was not as ideological powerful as the inner-outer dichotomy. It was more powerful. Not as ideologically powerful. So this is not true. Right, so this should be your answer. Hold on a second. Was condensed into an analogous but ideologically far more powerful dichotomy that between the condensed into an analogous but the discourse of the shows that the material spiritual distinction was condensed into an analogous but ideologically far more powerful dichotomy. Okay, got it. I'm misreading the statement. Sorry, folks. Just give me 1 second. Sorry about the confusion. Okay, let's read this. It's an interesting statement. What does it say? The discourse of nationalism shows that the material spiritual distinction was condensed into an analogous. Analogous means comparable, but ideologically far more powerful dichotomy. So the outer and inner dichotomy. There are two dichotomies here, right? There is, sorry about this, material and spiritual. Okay. There is outer and inner. Okay, there are two dichotomies and the comparison is between them. It says was condensed into an analogous, so they were comparable, but ideologically far more powerful dichotomy, that between the outer and the inner. So the outer and inner was more powerful than the material spiritual. That's what it means. Sorry about that. I made a mistake. So the sentence says the outer and inner ideology was more ideologically powerful than material and spiritual. They were comparable, analogous, but outer and inner was more powerful. Okay, hence this is true for the passage, right? Because the passage says the outer inner was more powerful. This is saying was not as ideologically powerful as the inner outer dichotomy. So this is correct for the passage. This is not our answer. The answer is 3. Okay, sorry about the confusion. 4 is not the correct answer. 4 is not the correct answer. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'll just confirm it again, but I'm pretty sure 4 is not the correct answer. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, correct, folks. So the answer is definitely 3. Okay, so it's 4 is correct for the passage. It's true. Okay, so that's why it's not the answer. We're looking for not true. Hence the answer is 3. Okay, all right. Sanskriti, you can stay back. I'll explain that statement. Okay, All right, let's go on. Question number 4. Which one of the following explains the contradictory polls on Indian nationalism? Okay, we'll run the poll. Poll should be up any second. In the meantime, you can read the question. Okay, the poll is up. Please vote, folks. All right, people, we'll end the poll in 30 seconds. We'll have to go a little quick because we have to do another RC as well. All right, 10 seconds. All right. Okay. Great. Oh, this has a big majority. All right. Hopefully, you folks are correct. Option 3, 62%. So that's your first choice, followed by 14% option 1. That's your second choice, and 11% for 2 and 4. Okay. One second. Okay, let's look at this. Which one of the following explains the contradictory pulls on Indian nationalism? I think I kind of gave the answer away when I was explaining the previous question. Sorry about that. Okay, the contradictory pulls are explained in the first paragraph. You can go and reread it. That's what we do with specific questions, right? The answer is in the first paragraph itself. It says, I've elaborated a framework for analyzing the contradictory pulls on Indian nationalist ideology in its struggle against the dominance of colonialism. What are the contradictory pulls that the author is talking about? So move on. Briefly, this resolution was built around a separation. Blah. Okay, that's fine. It was in the material sphere that the claims of Western civilization were the most powerful. To overcome this domination, the colonized people had to learn those superior techniques of organizing material life and incorporate them within their old cultures. But this could mean the imitation of West in every aspect of the life. For then the very distinction between the West and the East would vanish. So what is contradictory? See, the contradiction is that the East is resisting the West. That is the nationalist ideology here, right? According to the passage. They're struggling against the dominance of colonialism. and they want a resolution. They don't want to be dominated or subjugated by the West. But then the contradiction is that they actually end up imitating West when it comes to the material sphere. Okay, so on one aspect they are resisting. On one hand they are resisting, on the other hand they are imitating them. That's the contradiction that the author is talking about in the first paragraph. So the answer is here: despite its spiritual superiority, Indian nationalism had to fight against colonial domination. This is not the contradiction. This is not the contradiction. Okay, it says despite its spiritual superiority, Indian nationalism had to fight against colonial. This is not the contradiction at all being spoken in the first paragraph. Despite its fight against colonial domination, Indian nationalism had to borrow from the colonizer in the spiritual sphere. This is wrong. Indian nationalism didn't borrow from the colonizer in the spiritual sphere, they borrowed in the material sphere. That's why this looks like the right answer. Despite its scientific and technological inferiority, Indian nationalism had to fight against colonial domination. No, this is not the contradiction. The answer is definitely 3. They were fighting against colonial domination on one hand, they were resisting it. On the other hand, they had to borrow from the colonizer. Okay, so that's the answer. Great, people. We took quite a bit to discuss this passage, but let's go to passage number 2. Okay, now before we go to passage number 2, just a quick announcement, right? 2IM students, of course, you can ignore it. If you're not a 2IM student, there are a couple of announcements. See, we've launched, in fact, a percentile booster course. Okay, so at this stage, a lot of students would be stuck in the 90 to 95 percentile range. And then you get stuck and you're wondering, how do I sort of cross this barrier? How do I reach 98 percentile? How do I reach 99 percentile? Okay, so this course is designed for you. It's called the 95 to 99 percentile booster course. All right, we've already launched it at a very attractive price. It's the original price is 5,000, but currently it's being offered at 4,000 till Sunday. Okay, and that's the strict window that we'll follow. All right, so it's being offered at 4,000. It includes a bunch of things. Mainly, it includes 6+ live classes that will be offered to you on advanced topics. Each class will be of 2 hours, and these will cover advanced topics in the 3 sections. So 6+ live classes, 1 full day quant workshop live, that's included, pre-recorded videos of 99 lessons. So 99 percentile booster lessons. All of them contain videos. They're already a part of the course. This includes mocks as well. Okay, so you'll get 25 mocks, some from 2IM and some from a partner, Takshila. All right, so it includes mocks. It also includes a bit of ZAT components. All right, so it includes quite a bit, and it's coming to you at an offer price of 4,000 till Sunday. So definitely check it out. The link will be sent by my colleague in chat. You can check it out. And if you have any questions, feel free to call us, email us, and more than happy to assist you. But definitely check out this course. It's pretty attractive. If you want a more comprehensive course, let's say you want to go beyond that, there's a self-paced crash course also available. Okay, and that's coming to you at 9,000 till Sunday. Usually it's 10,000. We're giving it away at 9,000. In addition to what I just mentioned, that includes the entire CAT curriculum in the form of pre-recorded videos and also includes GDPI training. The self-paced crash course includes these additional components, and that's at 9,000. Okay, all right, check it out. It's already pinned on chat, and we can move to the next passage now. All right, this passage is about, I've just given a random headline called Truth. Ignore that. Please read this passage in the PDF. I'll give you about 5 minutes, and then we'll start discussing it. Okay, go for it, people. And don't forget to like my video. Folks, I'm not rushing you. Take your time. But when you're done, either you type done or best is to extract the main idea. Okay. When I have a few ones, then I can start discussing. Interesting. So I'm getting a few main ideas. I'm going to read that. Ishika says we can't always clinch to the truth if we want to unite millions of people. Okay, interesting. Yes, you're correct. You're definitely it aligns with the passage. Sanskriti says passage revolves around telling or not telling the truth and the consequences of both. We often gain power by only telling the people what they actually want to hear rather than telling the harsh reality. Okay, fair enough. Let's read a few more, or people just say done if you're done. Garima says power does not always come from truth. Okay. She's retracted the message. I've already read it. Srivats, the passage talks about relation between truth and power. While truth has the ability to gain power by manipulating human beliefs and uniting them, fiction is superior than truth when it comes to uniting people. Okay, while truth has the ability to gain power by manipulating human beliefs. Srivats, how can truth manipulate human beliefs? Think about it. The way you framed it, right? You say while truth has the ability to gain power by manipulating, truth doesn't manipulate human beliefs. If you're manipulating human beliefs, then that's not truth, right? That's fiction. So I think the framing has to be a little better. Tariq says passage describes the relationship of power and truth, but telling truth in all situations disunites people, hence adding fictions to certain situations preserves unity. Okay, great, good job, folks. Good job. Let's start discussing. Okay, all right. What does it say? Again, abstract. It's an abstract passage, right? So it says many people believe that truth conveys power. All right, hence sticking with the truth is the best strategy for gaining power. Unfortunately, this is just a comforting myth. In fact, truth and power have a far more complicated relationship because in human society, power means two very different things. So the first paragraph says that the general belief, many people believe that truth conveys power. So the best strategy for gaining power is be honest, completely honest, and you will gain power. But the author says this is just a comforting myth. All right, truth and power, according to the author, have a far more complicated relationship. Why? Because in human society, power means two very different things. And what are those two different things? The author will explain in the next paragraph. Okay, so connect the dots. On the one hand, so that means the author is explaining the first thing. Power means having the ability to manipulate objective realities, to hunt animals, to construct bridges, to cure diseases, to build atom bombs. This kind of power is closely tied to the truth. Okay, so power has two things, right? It says two very different things. One and two. In where? In human society. Okay. So one, it says ability to manipulate objective realities, and it is closely tied to the truth. The first one is closely tied to the truth. If you believe a false physical theory, you won't be able to build an atom bomb. So very closely tied to truth. On the other hand, transition word, second aspect, power also means having the ability to manipulate human beliefs, thereby getting lots of people to cooperate effectively. Building atom bombs requires not just a good understanding of physics, but also the coordinated labor of millions of humans. Planet Earth was conquered by Homo sapiens rather than by chimpanzees or elephants because we are the only mammals that can cooperate in very large numbers. Social cooperation. And large scale cooperation depends on believing common stories. But these stories need not be true. Understand, this is where the fiction aspect is coming into picture. You can unite millions of people by making them believe in completely fictional stories about God, about race, or about economics. The dual nature of power and truth results in the curious fact that we humans know many more truths than any other animal, but we also believe in much more nonsense. So the second aspect of power, it's not relying on truth, right? It's relying on fiction. Because and why is that fiction? Why is that fiction coming into picture? Why are these fictional stories about God, about race, or about economics being propagated? Because they want to unite people. Okay, it clearly says you can unite millions of people by making them believe in fictional stories. And the dual nature of power and truth is, it's obviously dual nature, right? Because here you're not speaking the truth. You're speaking lies, you're speaking fiction. So that's why it becomes dual. It's no longer truth, it's the opposite of truth. And why are they doing it? To unite people. Okay, alright, let's move on. When it comes to uniting people around a common story, so it's carrying on that aspect, fiction actually enjoys three inherent advantages over the truth. So fiction has advantages over truth when it comes to uniting people around a common story. Interesting. First, whereas the truth is universal, fictions tend to be local. Consequently, if you want to distinguish a tribe from foreigners, a fictional story will serve as a far better identity marker than a true story. Okay, so truth is universal, fiction is local stories around your tribe, around your group. Okay. Second huge advantage of fiction over truth has to do with the handicap principle, which says that reliable signals must be costly to the signaler. Otherwise, they can easily be faked by cheaters. Complicated. If political loyalty is signaled by believing a true story, anyone can fake it, but believing ridiculous and outlandish stories exacts greater cost and is therefore a better signal of loyalty. Okay, so the second one is a little complicated. Some of you might have understood it, some of you not. Okay, but that's fine. Don't get stuck here. Okay, at least what you can gather from this is the example. So what it's saying is that when it comes to loyalty, if you're basing the loyalty on a true story, it can be faked. But basing the loyalty on a ridiculous and outlandish story, think about it. You come up with a ridiculous and outlandish story and you make people believe them. There's a greater cost there. The loyalty will be stronger because the effort is stronger. It's easy to do it with truth. It's difficult to do it with ridiculous and outlandish stories. Okay, let's move on. Let's not get stuck. What is the third advantage? Third and most important, the truth is often painful and disturbing. Hence, if you stick to unalloyed reality, few people will follow you. An American presidential candidate who tells the American public the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about American history has a 100% guarantee of losing the elections. An uncompromising adherence of the truth is an admirable spiritual practice, but is not a winning political strategy. Okay, so here it's describing the three advantages that fiction has over truth. Okay, right? Those are the three advantages, and we read that. The last part is also interesting. It's saying that truth is third and most important. The truth is often painful. So if you give people the harsh reality, especially as a politician, what does a politician do? If the politician starts speaking the truth, very few people will be able to accept that harsh reality. So there's a politician gives you fake promises, and then that's how people rally around them. So the author says an uncompromising adherence to the truth is an admirable spiritual practice, but is not a winning political strategy. Okay, let's move on. Even if we need to pay some price for deactivating our rational faculties, the advantages of increased social cohesion are often so big that fictional stories routinely triumph over the truth in human history. So social cohesion, okay, or social cooperation is more important. And even if that's coming at the expense of sort of, deactivating our rational faculties. So we kind of like, the price you pay for social cohesion is to believe in fiction. Scholars have known this for thousands of years, which is why scholars often had to decide whether they serve the truth or social harmony. Okay, should they aim to unite people by making sure everyone believes in the same fiction, or should they let people know the truth even at the price of disunity? So again, sort of comparing that, right? We're basically saying that for unity or social cohesion, right, fiction is important. Okay, so if you want to unite people, you need fiction. If you just speak the truth all the time, then it will come at the price of disunity, and social cohesion is more important. All right. Okay. So what is the passage talking about? See, there is of course the discussion of power and truth, right? But is that the main discussion? Think about it. Isn't the focus more on fiction, right? Isn't the focus more on the fact that okay, you need fiction to unite people. You need fiction for social cohesion. So this whole aspect of truth conveying power is not necessarily true. Okay. Sometimes what you have to do is you have to unite people through fictional stories. So social cohesion comes at that sort of with fiction, and that's why fiction has advantages over truth, and that's why it's used for social cohesion. Okay, so that's the main idea. Let's move on and let's discuss the questions. All right, we'll run the poll now, and you can answer the first question. We'll go a little faster, folks. Okay, the poll should be up any minute. Yeah, it's up. Please vote. We'll do it faster. All right, people, will end the poll in 30 seconds. Okay. All right. The poll is ended. Sorry, I should have given you a 10-second marker. Sorry about that, folks. All right. Let's discuss this. Regarding which one of the following quotes could be argued that the author overemphasizes the importance of fiction? Okay. Very few votes because we ended it early, but 64% of you have gone for one. This is your first choice. Okay, and then followed by 2, 3, and 4. All right. So regarding which one of the following quotes could we argue that the author is overemphasizing the importance of fiction? So basically the question is asking in which of the following quotes the author overemphasizes the importance of fiction. The author is clearly giving fiction more importance, right? But which quote overemphasizes it is what the question is asking. Okay, let's read the first quote. These are quotes from the passage. Scholars often had to decide whether they served the truth or social harmony. Okay, so the choice was between truth or social harmony. Should they aim to unite people by making sure everyone believes in the same fiction, or should they let people know the truth? So, what is this quote saying? That fiction gets you unity always, okay, and truth gets you disunity. So, because it says scholars often have to decide whether they serve the truth or social harmony. So, it's making it very absolute, either truth or social harmony. If you want social harmony, then go with fiction, right? So look at the way this sentence is constructed, right? It's very sort of assertive. It's very absolute. It's either or. It's black and white. The author is overemphasizing the importance of fiction here because the author is saying that in a way that fiction will get you unity. And the way the sentence is constructed, fiction will get you unity, like very confidently. That's why there is an overemphasis of fiction here. Okay, let's park this. Second quote, hence sticking with the truth is the best strategy for gaining power. Unfortunately, this is just a comforting myth. How? Why would you say that the author is overemphasizing the importance of fiction here? The author is simply telling you that truth is not the best strategy for gaining power. Okay, the author is not overemphasizing the importance of fiction here. The author is simply saying truth is not the best strategy for gaining power. Okay, so this is not your answer. In fact, truth and power have a far more complicated relationship because in human society, power means two very different things. There is no emphasis on fiction. Forget overemphasis. On the one hand, power means having the ability to manipulate objective realities, to hunt animals, blah, blah, blah. Again, there is no emphasis on fiction here. We need a quote that overemphasizes the importance of fiction, and that is one. Okay? All right, let's go to question two. We'll run the poll now. Okay, 30 seconds, folks. Okay, 10 seconds. The results should be up any second. Talking about the central theme of the passage. Okay, it's connected to the main idea, right? All right, 40% of you have gone for 3. Okay, and then it's split between 2 and 4. And then finally you have 13% who have gone for 1. All right. The central theme of the passage is about the choice between. Okay. Now, what is the central theme first of all? Let's try to identify that. All right. What is the central theme here, folks? If I were to ask you and tell me in chat, give me the most important keywords from this passage. Okay, forget sentences. Just give me the most important keywords from this passage. Give me the most important ones. Let's start with that. Which keyword do you think is the most important in this passage? Tell me in chat. Fiction. Okay, Ishika says fiction. I'm just going to write that down. Rohit says truth. Okay. Tariq says power, truth, and fiction. So Tariq is adding power here. Truth, power, fiction. Srivats. Pradeep says people's unity. Very nice. Okay. What else? Any more answers? Okay, great. So this is what you've given me, right? You've given me fiction, you've given me truth, you've given me power, and you've given me unity. Social cohesion. Sunset says social cohesion. So that is like unity. Okay. All right. So you've basically given me 4 keywords here. Okay. Out of these 4 keywords, which is the most important one in the passage? Or give me the 2 most important ones. And consider the whole passage. Give me the 2 most important ones out of the 4 listed on the screen. Truth and power. Okay, Srivat says truth and power, fiction and unity. Interesting. Truth, fiction and truth, truth and power. Ria says power, truth and power. Okay, all right. Let's talk about this. Now, the passage starts by saying many people believe that truth conveys power, right? And then the author says this is a comforting myth. Okay, truth and power have a far more complicated relationship. And then they explain explain sort of that relationship. Power means, it says, because in human society power means 2 very different things. It explains that. And then the second aspect is more important, right? Because the author says, on the other hand, power also means having the ability to manipulate human beliefs. Okay, thereby getting lots of people to cooperate effectively. And the author carries on that thread. Okay, in the next paragraph also. Here also the author is talking about uniting people around a common story. This paragraph is all about social cohesion and unity and how fiction can unite. Okay, and then here also it ends by still following the whole unity social cohesion aspect. Okay, now think about this. Again, I'm not saying look at the words, the frequency of the words in the passage. No, that is not what we're doing. But I'm just trying to understand the flow of ideas here. It starts with truth and power. Okay, it tells you that truth and power have a far more complicated relationship. Then it says power means 2 very different things. It explains the first thing. The author doesn't elaborate on that. The author elaborates on the second one. And cooperate effectively, social cohesion, unity, isn't that the essence of the passage? I would actually argue here, is power even the main idea? Isn't the main idea around social cohesion through fiction. Isn't that the main idea? Yes, I agree that it starts with that. But the main idea of the passage is all about, okay, how do you unite people? And fiction has certain three clear advantages over truth. And then it relates it to the fact that it helps in uniting people. Doesn't it also say something like third and most important? The truth is often painful. Okay, so here in this passage, okay, if I were to look at these four keywords, I would actually argue that unity and social cohesion is very important. Okay, in terms of the theme, fiction is very important in terms of the theme. Okay, let's look at the answer. Central theme of the passage is about the choice between stories that unite people and those that distinguish groups from each other. Stories that unite people and stories that distinguish groups from each other. That's not the choice. That is not connected to the main idea. Okay. Leaders who unknowingly spread fictions and those who intentionally do so. There is no unknowing intentionally mentioned anywhere. Sorry, the poll has been run by mistake. Sorry, folks. There is no unknowingly and intentionally here. Okay, so this is not your answer. Attaining social cohesion and propagating objective truth. Attaining social cohesion and propagating objective truth. The choice is between them, right? Either you choose social cohesion or you choose objective truth. Okay, so this looks like the right answer. Now the confusion can be between 3 and 4. It's very normal. It's a tricky question. The confusion can be between 3 and 4. See, what is the difference between 3 and 4? Ask yourself, whenever you're stuck with two options, how do you break the tie? What is the difference between these two options? The difference is that third talks about social cohesion, fourth does not talk about social cohesion. Now, what you have to decide is social cohesion more important in the passage's main idea, or is power more important? Think about it. Power is not even mentioned. It's mentioned in the beginning, but later on the author doesn't even elaborate on that, right? The author just mentions power in the beginning. But then it changes tracks and talks about fiction and social cohesion. So hence, when you're evaluating these two options, you have to compare social cohesion and power. Which is the central theme? The central theme is around social cohesion. Hence, the answer is 3. Okay? Alright, stay back if you have a question around this, but this is how you should be analyzing it. It's a tricky one. Okay? Let's go to question number 3. We can have the poll now. Sanskriti, propagating objective truth here in this question. Remember, the question says central theme is about the choice between. The question says that, right? The central theme is about the choice between. So either you choose social cohesion or you choose objective truth. So if you're saying that if it's a versus situation, you will have to bring in objective truth, right? Social cohesion is the main sort of element. Fiction is the main element as well. Okay, actually, if you were to ask me what's the main idea, I would say social cohesion and fiction. Those two keywords are the most important. But the question is framed in such a way that you have to do a versus. So hence you can't bring fiction because it can't be social cohesion versus fiction. It has to be social cohesion versus truth. So hence we are going with that option. Okay, all right. Objective truth means truth only. Okay, unbiased truth. Objective means unbiased. The truth, but the truth and nothing but the truth. It's just objective is just there for emphasis. It just means truth. Okay. Okay. All right. I can't see the poll. Hold on. I can see it now. 1 second. Yeah. We'll end the poll in 30 seconds, folks. We're already going over time, but that's okay. End the poll in 30 seconds. Okay. Let's do it in 10 seconds. All right, so 68% of you have gone for 2. Okay, it's a pretty good majority. 22% have gone for 3. Okay, 9% of you have gone for 1 and no takers for 4. Okay, all right. The author implies, okay, inference question, implies that like scholars, successful leaders. Okay, so first of all, we have to understand what do scholars do. Scholars is mentioned in the last paragraph. If you've read effectively, you would get a trigger. You'll go to the last paragraph, reread it, understand what scholars are saying, and then answer the question. Okay? All right, let's see what the scholars are saying. Even if we need to pay some price, and remember when you're reading the specific part, don't just read that part. Read a few lines above and below as well for complete context. There's nothing below, so above definitely. Even if we need to pay some price for deactivating our rational faculties, the advantages of increased social cohesion are often so big that fictional stories routinely triumph over the truth in human history. Scholars have known this for thousands of years, which is why scholars often had to decide whether they serve the truth or social harmony. So scholars knew this. That's why the scholars often had to decide, okay, should we serve the truth in this situation or should we go for social harmony? That means they always had a choice, and it seemed like they picked one of these choices based on the situation. That's what it looks like, right? Should they aim to unite people by making sure everyone believes in the same fiction, or should they let people know the truth even at the price of disunity? Right? Remember, here it's a choice. Scholars often had to decide. So here we can infer they chose either or depending on the situation. It doesn't say that they always went for social harmony. They just had the choice and they had to decide which one to pick. Okay, that's what the scholars did. So keep that in mind. Now, author implies that like scholars, successful leaders today know how to create social cohesion better than in the past. There is no today and past comparison, right? There's no present and past comparison. Not the answer. Know how to balance truth and social unity. They have the choice. We can infer that depending on the situation, they picked either or. So what were they doing? Balancing truth and social unity. Park it. Need to leverage both types of power to remain in office. No, scholars are not connected with the types of power. Okay, so this is not their answer. Use myths to attain the first type of power. Nope. Nope. Okay, the answer is definitely the balance between truth and social unity. Okay, so this is your correct answer. All right, let's do the last question. Let's run the poll. Let's finish it quickly. Sanskriti, I'm glad you got it, the right one. Yeah, no problem. That the question is tricky because see that question is interesting because it says main idea, but it gives you a specific aspect around the choice, right? If it was just main idea, probably fiction and social cohesion would have come there, but the objective truth came because of the versus part, choice part. Okay, let's run the poll. The poll should be up any minute. Okay, it's up. Please vote. Okay, we'll end the poll in 30 seconds, people. Okay, ending the poll in 10 seconds. Right, we'll have the results. Yeah. Oh wow, it's split. Okay. All right. 1 and 2 are your first two choices. Very equal percentages, 30%. Okay, so this is so first choice. This is also your first choice. Then 20%. Now it's completely split. Okay, so this question did confuse you. Okay, let's see this. The author would support none of the following statements about political power except that. Okay, now this is a confusing question. This is a double negative. Okay, be careful of this. This has become very common in CAT lately for the past 2 years. You most likely would see this in 22 as well. See, double negatives, you don't have to get confused. Follow the same thing. Don't read except. Don't read except first. Just read without except. It will become very clear. Let's do that. The author would support none of the following statements about political power. That means the author would support none of these options. That's what it means, right? The author would support none of the 4 options. Now there is an except. So what does it mean? 3, the author will not support. 1, the author will support it. Correct? So if you break it down, it becomes easier. So first you start with none. Okay? 4. The author will not support all 4 of them. Except -1 equal to 3. So 3 do not support, 1 support. Okay, what is our job? We have to pick the one that the author would support. Okay, all right. So while unalloyed truth is not recommended, leaders should stay as close to okay. Sorry, I'm blabbering. It typically happens when I start to get exhausted. Sorry about that. While unalloyed truth is not recommended, leaders should stay as close as possible to it. Does the author say that leaders should stay as close as possible to truth? You can go back and read the line. The author says that absolute truth, objective truth is great spiritually, but it's not a great political strategy. It's not a winning political strategy. So author saying truth is not going to help you win. So here the option says while unalloyed truth means untouched truth, absolute truth. Leaders should stay as close as possible to it. The author doesn't say that. Okay, the author doesn't say that. So the author does not support it. We have to pick the one that author supports. So this is not your answer. Okay. People cannot handle the unvarnished truth. So leaders retain power from deviating from it. That is what the author is saying. The author is saying the winning political strategy is to deviate from truth. Go back and read it. You'll understand it. And that's because people can't handle it. It's mentioned in connection with that. So people cannot handle the unvarnished truth. So leaders retain power from detaining from it. This the author would support. This looks like an answer. There are definite advantages to promoting fiction, but there needs to be some limit to a pervasive belief in myths. The author doesn't talk about this. Okay, it says advantages to promoting fiction, yes, but the author doesn't say there needs to be some limit to a pervasive belief in myths. The author doesn't mention that anywhere. Okay, this is not your answer. Manipulating people's beliefs is politically advantageous, but a leader who propagates only myths is likely to lose power. Nope, the author doesn't say that. Not at all. The author in fact says deviate. That's the winning political strategy. So the author would not support it. The only one that the author would support is number 2, and hence that's your answer. Okay. I think what must have happened is quite a few of you, got confused because of the construction of the question. So now you know how to handle double negatives. Anyway, in case of except, read it without except, then go to except. Okay. All right, people. So I'm going to stay back because I know some of you have questions. No problem. Please like the video. Please subscribe to our channel. And I've already spoken about our percentile booster course. Check it out. The chat is pinned. Okay. If you're a 2IM student, forget about it. Everything is covered. But if you are not and you want to join a percentile booster course, check out the pinned comment. Okay. It includes some live classes as well and your complete mocks. It's a great deal. We're offering that at 4,000 till Sunday. Then it will become 5,000. Okay. The green crash course also is a different. It's more than that. That is also being offered at 9,000 till Sunday. Okay. We'll send you the link in chat for the self-paced crash course. All right. Great. Okay. Questions. Some of you had questions, I believe. Tell me. I'll wait in chat to see if there are any questions and then we'll discuss that. Any questions in any of the passages? There's a bit of a lag on YouTube, so we'll wait. People, if you have a question, just type it in chat. Otherwise, we will call it a day. You can always post your questions as comments on the YouTube video. This will be available on our channel. So I can always answer them there. Of course, if you're a 2IM student, you have access to me internally, so we can talk about that. But let me know in chat. I'll wait for a couple minutes. Okay, looks like there are no questions, so we'll call it a day. Okay, again, if you have any questions, post it in the comments, or if you're my student, then you know we can talk internally. All right. Okay, people. I'm glad. I hope you enjoyed the session. Every Friday from 6 to 8, we're going to have this session. Okay. Next week we will discuss slot 3 to RCs. We'll finish the RCs in the next 2 weeks, and then we'll go to verbal ability. Okay. All right. All right. Have a good evening, people.